We are doing something really fun and exciting today, something that's been in the works for over a year now. We're going to be cooking leather breeches. We started this process last gardening season. We had an abundance of green beans between some of the Kentucky Wonders that we planted, pawpaw beans. If you're new around here, maybe you don't follow us on our vlog channel, you like pawpaw beans. My pawpaw has saved seeds for the last, 35 years. Seeds saved, replanted over and over. They're well acclimated to our area. I call them pawpaw beans. He's not 100% sure what variety they originally were. I think maybe rattlesnake beans, but I call them pawpaw beans. So I have some Kentucky Wonder, some pawpaw beans. I did not cut down all of my leather breeches. I still have some hanging in my pantry. So I'm not 100% sure which ones these are today, but it's one of those varieties, and it's from beans that we strung and dried last year. I have a video where we were stringing these leather breeches. I will link it for you down in the description box so you can check it out, but it's real simple. What we did was I used fishing line and a pretty big needle, and we just strung the beans one right after the other, almost making like a green bean garland. I did go ahead and string the beans before we put them on the line, so I snapped both ends off, broke both ends off, and pulled down and pulled any string that was on the beans. And then, like I said, we just put them on our fishing line. I put them in my pantry, and that's where they've been hanging and drying for over a year now. Let me stand you up so I can show them to you. So here they are. You can see my fishing line. Some people do it with thread. I found that any of the thread that I was using, it was wanting to break when I would go to hang it, or sometimes as I was pulling it through the beans. So the fishing line is what worked best for us. When I first started it, I was doing the first couple of strands I tied to the rack in my pantry. One end of this has a knot. So when I started to string them, I think it's this end down here. When I started to string them, I wrapped it around that first bean and tied it in a knot. So that's where the end was. And then I just sewed them beans onto the fishing line. And then I tied this to the rod in my pantry, and they hung there and dried. I found, as I went on, that it actually seemed to work better for me if I would tie one end, string my beans. This right here was one long piece. String my beans, hang them over the rod so that beans were hanging on both sides. And I just tied off both ends. Whatever you gotta do to hold your beans on and hang them up somewhere to dry. And then today is the day we're gonna take some of these leather breeches. We're gonna put them in some water, rehydrate them, boil them, cook them for a while with some bacon, and we're gonna have leather breeches with our dinner tonight. Now, this isn't something that I saw when I was growing up. If you're not near around here, then you know, you've heard me say this, but I spent a lot of time with Mamaw and Pawpaw, especially during the summers or after school while Mom and Dad was at work, and I spent a lot of time preserving with them, and they always preserved green beans, but they did a lot of canning. They would always can their green beans. And I think that the reason why they didn't do a lot of leather breeches is that something that maybe they did when they were younger, when it was a little more difficult to get canning supplies. And then as it was easier to get canning supplies, more people were just canning green beans. This is an excellent way of preserving, though. These have been hanging in my pantry for well over a year, drying, and now today we can prepare them. What I need to do now is get all of my leather breeches, all these beans, in a bowl, and I'm going to cover them with water and let them sit for about an hour. Then I'll rinse that water off. That way it'll get any little bits of dust or debris off of them. It'll also start to rehydrate them a little bit. Then I'm going to put them in some water, and I'm going to boil them. I'm going to parboil them. So before I cook them, because they're going to cook for several hours, but before I do that and simmer them for several hours, I'm going to do a boil. I'm going to boil them for 20-30 minutes, really get them going as far as cooking. Put on more water to simmer them. I'm going to show you all that as we go. Right now, I just need to cover them in some water in a bowl on the counter, let them sit for about an hour, and then give them a good rinse. People used to even hang these on their porches. I've seen, as I've been reading about them, researching about them, asking people about them, they said they would hang them in their kitchen. They would hang them in a pantry. They'd hang them on their porch, wherever they had to hang them up and let them dry. I thought that's pretty neat. And they're pretty. I've enjoyed walking in the pantry, seeing them hanging there. Alright, so when it comes to preparation, the first thing I need to do is get them off my line and into this bowl. And you can see, I left these on here whole. We just took the ends off, took the strings off, and put them on here. That's whole dried bean. I'm going to snip. I've got a little knot in this right here where it was tied. I'm going to snip that off so it'll come off easier. You can see this is the first one where I started my string. That's tied around the bean right there. So I'm going to snip that. And this is going to be a treat for us because we've actually not had as much success with green beans this year as we did last year. The weather's just not cooperated, and we've not had the abundance of green beans this year that we did last year. So this is going to be a treat for us. Alright, just gotta let them sit in this water for an hour or so. Dinosaurs drink water? Alright, bring your dinosaur over here and have a drink of the water. Then we'll rinse this off and go to the next step. Alright, give your dinosaur a drink. Ah, there we go. All better.
Mom, I want to fill up.
Well, we're done for right now, but you can help when we do the next step, okay? I should have let you help pull those off. Next time I'll let you help pull them off, okay? So you can see these have already started to rehydrate and plump up. I'm going to take this water, pour it off, give them a little rinse. Then I'm going to put them with some clean water in my pot. Now I'm going to cut up a couple of pieces of bacon and put in here. You could also put bacon grease. You're saving your bacon grease when you cook bacon, which you should be. I've got some bacon, so I'm going to put that in. Salt and pepper. And you don't have to put meat in here, but I feel like it adds a lot of flavor. And I put either Italian seasoning or at least oregano in all of my green beans. So I'm going to put some of that in. I'm going to bring this to a boil. I'll boil it for probably about 15 minutes or so. And then I'll turn it down to a simmer and we'll let it cook for several hours. I'll just keep an eye on the water level and add some more if needed. The leather britches are delicious. They're definitely a different texture and flavor profile than a fresh green bean or a canned green bean. They're almost a meatier, deeper flavor. Very good and definitely a treat. A nice alternative to preserving green beans than what we're used to doing with freezing or canning the green beans. Try drying some and having leather britches. Let me know, have you ever had leather britches? Have you preserved green beans this way? If so, what do you think about them? Y'all get in the kitchen and make some memories with the people you love. I'll see you in the next one. Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all.
Oh, he's a dinosaur.